An American tourist demanded to speak to the manager of Bondi Beach because there were no lifeguards in the water actively rescuing people. She said in America, lifeguards swim around checking on everyone constantly. When I explained that Australian lifeguards monitor from towers and only enter the water for actual emergencies, she insisted this was lazy government work. She wanted a refund for her beach visit and demanded we install American-style lifeguards who actually care about safety. This channel tracks how American expectations melt on contact with real-world logic. I decode these cross-cultural meltdowns weekly. Subscribe if you prefer. Analysis over outrage. She tried to pay the council a supervision fee of $50 to have someone follow her into the water. Guest at our Sydney hotel called reception at 2 a.m. furious that there were giant spiders in his room. When I came up, he pointed at a huntsman spider on the wall, absolutely frozen in terror. He demanded we evacuate the entire floor and call pest control immediately. I explained huntsman spiders are harmless, and most Australians just leave them alone because they eat mosquitoes. He accused me of trying to gaslight him into accepting dangerous wildlife in his paid accommodation. Most people laugh at these stories. I study what they reveal. If you've already spotted the deeper pattern in how entitlement travels, you belong here. Hit subscribe and stay 3 steps ahead. He wanted documentation that the spider had been psychologically evaluated before being allowed to remain in guest areas. A family visiting from Texas complained that our servo didn't sell guns. The dad was genuinely confused why a service station would only sell fuel, snacks, and car supplies. He said back home, you can buy firearms at gas stations for protection during road trips. When I explained that Australia has strict gun laws, and you definitely can't just buy them at petrol stations, he looked at me like I'd told him we don't have oxygen. He asked where the nearest gun vending machine was. He was not joking and seemed personally offended that I didn't know. An American woman at a cafe in Melbourne demanded we remake her flat white because it didn't come in a bowl. She insisted she ordered a flat white, which in America means a latte served in a massive bowl-sized cup. When I brought her an actual Australian flat white in a normal ceramic cup, she said this was false advertising. She claimed the small size was portion discrimination. She offered to pay double if we'd just give her a normal amount of coffee like civilized countries. She left a 1-star review saying, Australian cafes are running a coffee scam. A tourist couple called emergency services because they saw a kangaroo on a golf course in Canberra. They were convinced it was an escaped zoo animal that needed to be rescued and returned to captivity. When the operator explained that kangaroos are wild animals that just live here, they refused to believe it. They said they'd seen kangaroos at the San Diego Zoo, so obviously they belong in zoos. They demanded someone come capture it before it hurt itself on the golf course. They tried to feed it hot dogs. The kangaroo was fine. They were not. A man from Florida visited Queensland and filed a formal complaint that the ocean was trying to kill him. He'd gone swimming and encountered a blue bottle jellyfish. He wanted to sue the beach for not having warning signs about dangerous animals in the water. When I showed him the multiple signs warning about marine stingers, he said the signs should be bigger and specify each individual species. He suggested we install metal detectors but for jellyfish. He genuinely asked if Australia had considered just removing all the dangerous things from the ocean to make it safer for tourism. An American family at our Gold Coast resort demanded we turn down the birds. They complained that kookaburras were making too much noise at 6 a.m. and disrupting their vacation. The mother said in America, hotels would never allow such disruptive wildlife near guest rooms. She wanted us to relocate all the kookaburras to a different part of Australia, preferably nowhere near hotels. When I explained we can't just evict native birds, she accused us of prioritizing animals over paying customers. She asked to speak to the bird's manager. She submitted a formal noise complaint against the local kookaburra population. A tourist in Darwin was outraged that servo workers wouldn't let him pump his own petrol. He said, being forced to have an attendant pump your fuel is communist. When I explained that in the Northern Territory, many servos are full service because of safety regulations and extreme heat, he said this was government overreach. He claimed pumping your own gas is a fundamental human right. He tried to do it himself anyway, and nearly caused a scene. He called it petroleum oppression. He wanted to start a petition to bring American-style freedom to Australian fuel stations. A woman visiting Adelaide complained that our restaurant's chicken parma was discrimination against Italians. She insisted the correct term is chicken parmigiana, and that Australians shortening it to parma is culturally disrespectful. She said her grandmother was Italian and would be spinning in her grave. When I explained that Aussies shorten everything and it's just local slang, she demanded we change our entire menu to full Italian names. She said abbreviated food names indicate a lack of culinary sophistication. She left before ordering because she couldn't support a restaurant that disrespects Italian heritage through lazy linguistics. An American dad at Taronga Zoo was furious that the koalas were sleeping and demanded we wake them up for his son's photo. He'd paid $60 for zoo entry and expected all animals to be active and entertaining. When staff explained that koalas sleep 18-22 hours per day naturally, he said, that's false advertising. He claimed American zoos would never allow animals to just sleep during business hours. He suggested we install little alarm systems to wake koalas when guests approach. He genuinely asked if the koalas were depressed and needed medication to be more energetic for tourists. A couple from Seattle visited Byron Bay and complained that the shops closed too early. They were shocked that most stores close at 5 p.m. and almost nothing is open past 9 p.m. They said this is economically backwards and Australia is losing money by not being a 24/7 society. When I explained that Australians value work-life balance, they looked at me like I'd spoken gibberish. They said convenience is more important than workers' personal time. They asked if Australia had considered just adopting American business hours to be more modern. They genuinely couldn't comprehend why a pharmacy wouldn't be open at midnight. An American tourist demanded a refund from a Perth restaurant because the serving sizes were too reasonable. He ordered fish and chips, expecting American-style portions, which he described as buckets of food that could feed a family. When he received a normal Australian serving, he accused us of running a scam. He said he'd paid $25 and expected at least 3 pounds of fish. When I explained our portions are standard size, he said Australia has a portion control problem. He brought out his phone to show me photos of American restaurant meals as proof of what normal looks like. A woman in Hobart called the police because her Airbnb had a possum in the roof. She was hysterical, convinced it was a giant mutant rat trying to break into her room. When officers arrived and explained that possums are protected native animals that commonly live in roofs, she demanded they arrest the possum for trespassing. She said the Airbnb listing didn't mention wildlife roommates. She wanted the possum charged with breaking and entering. She tried to perform a citizen's arrest on the possum herself. The police just left. The possum stayed. She checked out at 3 a.m. An American family at our Melbourne restaurant demanded we bring them ranch dressing for their pizza. When I explained that ranch dressing isn't really a thing in Australia and we don't serve it, they were genuinely baffled. The dad said ranch is a universal condiment and asked how Australians survive without it. He claimed not having ranch is a human rights violation. When I offered other dipping sauces, he said none of them were real condiments. He left to find a supermarket that sold ranch. He came back disappointed 30 minutes later. He ate his pizza plain while mourning American condiment superiority. A tourist from Boston visited Uluru and was furious that he couldn't climb it. He said he'd traveled 10,000 miles specifically to climb the rock, and now the government was preventing him from doing what he paid to do. When I explained that Uluru is sacred to Indigenous Australians, and climbing has been prohibited out of cultural respect. He said this was political correctness gone mad. He claimed in America, sacred sites still allow tourists because freedom matters more than feelings. He asked if he could pay extra to climb it anyway. He suggested we install a separate tourist rock nearby that Americans are allowed to climb. An American woman at a Cairns pharmacy was outraged that she couldn't buy antibiotics without a prescription. She said she has a sinus infection and knows her own body, so she should be able to buy medication without permission from strangers. When I explained that prescription requirements exist in Australia for safety reasons, she accused our healthcare system of being authoritarian. She said American pharmacies respect customer autonomy. She demanded to speak to whoever makes pharmacy laws. She tried to diagnose herself using WebMD on her phone right there in the store to prove she needed antibiotics. A family visiting Canberra complained that our hotel didn't have air conditioning in winter. It was 12 degrees Celsius outside. When I explained that many Australian buildings use heating in winter rather than air conditioning, they were genuinely confused. The mom said hotels should have AC year-round in case guests get too warm. She claimed temperature control is a basic hospitality requirement regardless of season. She wanted us to install emergency air conditioning immediately. When I offered extra blankets and a heater, she said this was third world problem solving. She left a review saying Australian hotels don't understand climate control. An American tourist called our Sydney tour company demanding a refund because the Harbour Bridge climb didn't include a gift shop at the top. He said he'd paid $300 expecting to buy souvenirs at the summit like American tourist attractions. When I explained there's no shop on top of the bridge because it's an active bridge climb experience, he said this was a missed business opportunity. He claimed every American landmark has gift shops at crucial photo moments. He suggested we install a vending machine at the top. He was genuinely disappointed that capitalist convenience hadn't conquered the bridge summit. Yet, a woman from Chicago visited Tasmania and complained that our wildlife sanctuary didn't have security guards with tranquilizer guns. She said American zoos have armed personnel ready to shoot animals if they escape. When I explained that Australian sanctuaries don't operate like that, and our animals aren't considered constant threats, she said this was negligent. She demanded to see our emergency animal assassination protocols. She claimed without armed guards, we're one Tasmanian devil escape away from disaster. She asked if Australia had considered American-style animal security measures. She took her children to the car for safety. A tourist couple in Brisbane was furious that their hotel room didn't have a clothes dryer. They'd done laundry and expected a machine to dry everything in 30 minutes like America. When staff explained that many Australians use clotheslines or drying racks, they were shocked. The husband said using outdoor clotheslines is what people did in the 1950s. He claimed Australia is technologically behind because we haven't universally adopted electric dryers. He asked if this was a money-saving measure or if Australia just doesn't believe in dryer technology. They hung their wet clothes on every available surface in their room and complained about humidity. An American dad at the Melbourne cricket ground demanded a refund because there wasn't enough scoring. He'd bought tickets expecting continuous action like American football. When the cricket match was still in the first hour with a score of 30 runs, he said this was boring and false advertising. He claimed sports should have points scored every few minutes, or they're not real sports. When I explained that cricket matches can last all day, and that's part of the appeal, he said Australia has a fundamental misunderstanding of entertainment value. He left after 2 hours. The match went for 6 more hours. A woman visiting the Great Barrier Reef complained that the reef didn't look like Finding Nemo. She'd expected bright cartoon colors and talking fish. When the actual reef was beautiful but naturally colored, she accused the tour company of taking her to a fake reef. She said real coral should be neon blue and purple like in the movie. She demanded to see the real reef where Nemo lives. When staff explained Finding Nemo is animated fiction, She said Hollywood wouldn't make a movie about a place that doesn't exist. She wanted a map to the actual Nemo Reef. She left a review saying Australian reefs are disappointingly realistic and lack Disney magic.